Hello, John Bloodworth, Gentleman Crafter here with more fun with foundation paper piecing. Something a little different this time, and as promised, I'm going to give you a way to use up more of those scraps. As you can see, I'm gathering a pile as I work through these patterns, and I'm probably sure that you're the same too. So what I've done is, instead of just randomly cutting the pieces this time, I have given you stencils to work with, or templates. And there are 4 patterns in total for this crazy patch foundation paper piecing project. Each one has its own set of templates. You can either do one block or do all four blocks and join them together. That's what I'll be showing you today. We're working with the same form of foundation paper piecing pattern here. No measurements because, as I say, you'll be cutting the fabric according to these templates. Notice on the templates though that the numbers are actually directional, so they are going to match up with your pattern. One thing that might confuse you out of the box though is that I've drawn a red line. This will be replaced by the usual dotted positioning line for part 1. Now I mentioned those numbers. Now they're actually designed to work on the back of the foundation paper piecing pattern as we normally do. So don't get confused and think that they're the wrong way round when you're looking at the front of the pattern. As ever, from this point, it's pretty much as we normally do. So we're positioning part 1, then we're going to get part 2, and we're going to position that over the top of part 1, right side facing down. Part 1 is right side facing up, obviously. So that's where part 2 would go. So we flip it over and line up the raw edges. This is very much as you've seen me do all the way through this series of foundation paper piecing patterns. I'm going to pin it in place as usual. And then I'll head over to the sewing machine and stitch the dashed line between parts 1 and 2. As always, we're using short stitch spacing and reverse stitching or tack stitching at the start and end of the line. Trimming threads, again as we normally do, and then unpinning. And you might notice I've got a different cutting mat this time around, and I'm actually just going to reposition that so you can see better. But basically I've got a mini pressing pad and a mini cutting mat in one little folder, so that's very handy. Now I am still going to use my finger presser to fold back the piece just so that I can make sure it's slightly pressed, but then I am going to use the iron each time I put a piece down, and this is really just to secure it in place and make sure that seam is flat before I attach the next piece. Forgive the giant iron, I did buy a mini travel iron, but it broke on my first go, so that's in the bin, or shall I say it's going back to Amazon. Anyway, so now what we're doing is we're folding back along the line that joins parts 1 and 3. And that was just to see if I needed to trim away anything. There shouldn't be a lot of trimming here because obviously these templates have been designed to fit exactly within the pattern, but occasionally some extra bits can sort of pop out, depending on how accurate your sewing is. So as you see, I'm positioning part 3. These parts can get slightly confusing, but if you use that method of aligning the template with the pattern, then aligning the fabric with that, and then flipping it over, you should be, fingers crossed, good to go. So again, now just stitching along the line that joins part 3 to the previous 2 parts that I've stitched. Trimming the threads at the end, and then trimming the threads at the beginning. Pins out, fold back, and the piece should cover the part that you intended it to, and obviously give you a 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way around. Again, just a little press. I'm actually ironing as opposed to pressing for some reason. I should just be pressing really. That's where you put the iron down, press and then lift up, as opposed to ironing, which is that sort of vigorous back and forward motion you probably do with your trousers. As you see there was just a little bit of excess that I needed to trim off, and what that did is gave me a nice straight raw edge to position part 4 against. So line up the template, line up the fabric and flip over, and then you should get a good idea of where it's supposed to fit. All of the bits and pieces around the edges of the templates, so where you see the sort of cutaway angled corners, these are sort of like pre-trimming, so do pay attention to those. They can sometimes sort of throw you a bit astray when you're stitching, but it should really be second nature perhaps. Let's hope. After 16 of these already, hopefully you're getting a good idea of how things fit together. Just realised I've not worn my ring in the last couple of videos. I wonder where I've put that. Anyway, that's something for me to think about. Okay, so part 4 is on, and as you see, when it flips back, it covers everything up to that corner and a bit beyond. Pressing with the iron. I think this is the most use the iron's had for quite a few years. When you live in the country and things just get muddy within seconds of walking out the house, presentation isn't always your first priority. Anyway, so folding back on the next part, and again trimming. As you can see, there was a little more that time. I really should stop sweeping things off onto the floor. Just means I have to pick them up later. Maybe I should stitch a little cut-offs bag for the edge of the table. Okay, lining up part 5 and then positioning the fabric. Pinning in place and stitching. While I'm doing that, let me just remind you all, obviously we have a Facebook group where people are sharing what they make, whether it's single blocks or completed projects. I'm loving seeing what you're all making, so if you'd like to take part and have a go, please feel free to come along and join in. Links to that, links to my website where you can download these patterns and templates will all be below the video in the description on YouTube. And of course the downloads themselves will be on the website gentlemancrafter.com. This is part 17, so if you're looking on the website you can find that there. Okay, folding back part 5, and as you can see that covers up to the other corner, giving that a little press. I'm not going to be showing you all 4 patterns in this, but it's exactly the same process for all 4, and all 4 of the stencils and patterns are included in one PDF document. So when you're printing it out, make sure you're selecting the pages that you want to print onto the relevant thing. For the templates, you could print them just straight onto copy paper as I did, or if you want to fussy cut the parts so that you're able to see what's through, you could also print them onto tracing paper. If you're going to do that, just give it a little extra time to dry, as tracing paper can sometimes smudge. And obviously with the patterns, you'll want to print those onto foundation paper. So, like I say, just make sure that you're choosing which pages you want to print when you come to print them. Okay, the next thing is in position, and I'm going in for stitching on that one. And while I do that one, please let me ask you to Make sure to leave a thumbs up, or even if you hate this, a thumbs down, whichever you choose. And of course, subscribe to the channel. I'm growing. It's great, but I'd love to grow some more. So any thumbs ups that can attract other people, or any subscriptions where I can let you know about future videos, are very much appreciated. While I'm on that point, I have included a link to my Buy Me a Coffee page. I'm not sure the website calls it Buy Me a Coffee Please, but I'm going to add a please in there. It's basically just a way of saying thanks. These videos are free, the patterns are free, the time that I've used to create all of this stuff I'm not charging for. So it's just a way of saying thank you if you want to, and I shall pop down the local coffee shop and take advantage. Mind you, I might use it to buy a can of stuff from the supermarket, a can of instant, because everything's going up these days. Anyway, yeah, random waffle. So I'm carrying on through the pattern pieces. With the templates, by the way, the numbers 6 and 9, because they can be confused, I've put a little arrow pointing in the direction showing whether it's a 6 or a 9, so hopefully that makes sense. Not all of the patterns have 10 pieces as this one does. Some of them have only 7, some of them have 8. It's just a bit of variety. Rather than you doing the same crazy patch over and over and over, I thought having a variety would be great, because then you can mix them up within your larger projects and create a truly random design. And all of this from your waste bits. How fantastic. So there's justification for that hoarding of those little scraps. Some of these pieces take, I don't know what, 1.5 inch piece of fabric, so you will likely have something within that bit box. Doesn't really matter whether they're all the same quality, but I would suggest that they're all quilting or craft cottons, just so that there's not too much thickness, because there are some overlapping seams and what do you call them? The bits where they intersect with a V or a Y. You know what I mean. So yes, keeping that bulk down is quite important. Okay, a bit more trimming here, just for those stray frayed edges. And then we've got just 2 pieces to go. So you can see, what's this, 15 minutes at most, we're almost there. So you could do one of these an evening, and over the year, that's a lot of crazy patches. 365 in fact. I don't know whether you want to work Christmas Day, but maybe that's the day you decide I need to get rid of this stash so that I can fit all the new stash that I've got in. I really must ask people on the Facebook group to share pictures of their stash. I'm always amazed. Compared to what I used to have, I've got such a tiny box of fabric these days. But it used to fill quite a bit of space in my old place. But now I have open plan living, and there is not a huge amount of storage, so I had a good old clear out a while back of lots of different creative items, and I've kept the bits that I couldn't bear to be parted with. For some people, I am sure that is a lot more than I managed to get rid of, but each to their own. Oh, by the way, if you want to support for free, I mentioned the Buy Me a Coffee thing. If you want to support for free, I do have the advertising thing rolling through Facebook, not Facebook, YouTube. So any watches really do count towards supporting the channel as well. So even if you want to watch some random things or just play them on mute, I don't mind. Okay, penultimate piece going in, number 9. I think another thing that's great about these crazy patches is you don't have to think about colour, you don't have to think about pattern, you don't really have to think about aligning anything either. Just grab that bit box, find bits that fit the templates and cut them out and stitch them. The beauty is that the randomness across it will work the less you get involved, if you see what I mean. So the less planning you do and the more just doing you do will allow the pattern to sort of really just be totally freeform. It's a great way of creating some wall art as well. You could make, so let's see, 4 of these blocks will make a 6-inch square. So 4 by 4, 16 blocks, 16 single blocks, and you've got yourself a 12-inch square wall hanging. I think my maths was right there. It's a bit late in the evening when I'm adding my voice to this, so I'm not entirely sure. I have included a list with the download that will guide you through how many blocks you need for certain project sizes, so it's probably better to go have a look at that. Okay, last piece being pinned in, and I'm just trying to make sure that it's spot on with the raw edges and the points. Pinning pieces this small is sometimes a little challenging, but in the end we figure out some way. Last stitch line going in. And of course, when we come to the end, we will be trimming around the solid border as well to tidy things up. And as you see, the templates are reusable, so you don't necessarily have to print a lot of these. You could just reuse them and cut your fabrics each time using that. I tend to trace around them and then cut. It's up to you how you go about that. Okay, that's the last piece in, so now it's the final trim. I'm sure there's a song about that. What is it, the final trim down? Maybe. So this trim down is up to the solid border, not the dashed border, because that would be cutting away your seam allowance. Okay, so there's Crazy Patch 1. And what I will do is show you the other 3 as well, so you can see how they turned out. There's 2. There's 3. And that would only leave 4. So I'm just checking that all those numbers are upright, so that it makes sense. So what you would do then is stitch those together on the 1/4 inch seam allowance, side by side, and then bottom to top, and press the seams open from the center. Don't press them to one side. And that would make your 4-block crazy patch. Okay, I hope you have fun with that one and get to use up your bit box. In the meantime, thanks for watching and thanks for sitting through all of the waffle. See you soon.